Last year, photographer and part-time gardener Brian Chapman bought 20,000 seedlings for his rural property. He then realised the idea of digging 20,000 holes wasn't that appealing. A quick Google search uncovered the power planter, a product only available out of the States. Not for long, Brian's now the local distributor and has sold $1.8 million worth of this genius little invention in his first 12 months. And photography? That is a thing of Brian's past. Hey, before we immerse ourselves in episode 376 of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, the marketing gold is made possible thanks to Open Universities Australia and 52ways.biz. Now, when was the last time you learnt something that could propel your business forward? Outside of listening to this show, and thank you for that, your answer may well be, not in a very long time, Timbo. That's cool, but maybe it's time that changed. Check out Open University's online courses over at open.edu.au. Someone's got to be the smartest in your industry. It may as well be you. And we're also made possible thanks to 52ways.biz, which is a free one-day live event hosted by small business expert Dale Beaumont and very long-time friend of this show. It's for motivated business owners looking for new ideas and inspiration. Dale shares 52 ideas at this content-packed event, and it's free. Grab your tickets over at 52ways.biz.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show, where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reed.
And welcome back to the Small Business Big Marketing Show. I am your host, Timbo Reed, but you, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner and you're ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be. If it's your first time around, welcome. Don't be scared. And if it's your 376th time round, I love your work. Hey, big show today. We catch up with an ex-photographer who secured the distribution rights to a gardening product that solved a major headache he'd created for himself. Resident techspert Dale Beaumont shows us how to collaborate using video. I'm going to show you a blog post strategy that'll make you look so good. I respond to some great follow-up questions from a listener who loved the recent episode I did on podcasting, and we go back into the vault revisiting a recent chat I had with a fellow who has proven we can all do good by doing good. Whew. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Now, how should we kick things off? Here we go. How about a little productivity fix?
Life just got a whole lot easier.
Hi, it's Dale Beaumont here from 52ways.biz, the best one-day business workshop ever, with another productivity tool to make your business life a whole lot easier. So what is the tool that I have for you today? Well, it's called appear.in. And it's available at the URL appear.in. Now, this tool can be used for creating a meeting with just about anyone, anywhere. You don't need to install any software on your computer. All you need is a web browser. So you go to appear.in. You don't have to install anything or log in. All you need to do is to pick a room name. So for example, I could go appear.in/Dale meeting, and instantly I've now got a URL that I can send to someone. I can email it to them. I can send it on Facebook Messenger or a text message perhaps. They could click on it, and now we are in a virtual meeting. So you can be using this for team members, for sales presentations that you might be having, team meetings, and you can have up to 8 people in a virtual meeting at any one time. There's all sorts of applications for this, and it doesn't matter whether someone's on a Mac or a PC or they're on an iPad. All they need is a browser and they can be having a conversation. It is the fastest and easiest way that I know to create a video conference or a video meeting with anyone, anywhere. So go ahead and check out appear.in. There you go. I told you life would get a whole lot easier. This has been Dale Beaumont from 52ways.biz. Now, back to you, Timbo.
Life just got a whole lot easier.
Hey, thanks, Dale. If you are loving the productivity tools Dale's sharing, and they've been so incredibly helpful, then you're going to love his 52 Ways event, where he shares 52 ways to grow your business, and he does that at an 8-hour free live event. I attended it recently, one of them recently, and was completely blown away. It's travelling around, he and his team are travelling around Australia and New Zealand throughout August 2017, and you can grab free tickets over at 52ways.biz. Stick around after today's interview because there's plenty more marketing gold for you, including my honest answers to some fantastic follow-up questions asked by a listener who was moved by the recent episode I did on podcasting. But right now, it's time to interrogate a business owner who's had some amazing success in his first 10 months of a new business venture. Brian Chapman is the Australian distributor for the Power Planter, a simple tool that attaches to your drill and makes it ridiculously easy to dig holes in the ground. Up until 12 months ago, Brian was making a pretty nice little living as a professional photographer, but he felt a little unsatisfied. Also a keen gardener living on a beautiful property just outside of Sydney, he'd created a rather large problem, which you'll hear about shortly, for which Power Planter, only available out of North America at the time, turned out to be the ideal solution. The rest is history, as Brian secured the license to it and has sold a whopping $1.8 million worth of it in his first 10 months of business. Great story. We cover a lot of ground in this chat, including how Brian attained the local distribution rights, the importance of listening to your instinct, the key to starting a successful online business and maintaining one, how Brian's created a wonderful brand personality, and all that's just in the first 5 minutes. So, I started off by asking Brian if he'd found his true calling.
I think, do we ever find our true calling? I think we always adapt our true calling all the time. So I've had a business before this that was a service-based business, and I loved doing that. And I did it for 20 years, but it got to the point where I probably had enough. And so now I'm on to the next adventure.
Tell us about having enough. You were a photographer, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I had quite a successful studio. So we were doing 500,000 business at 10K a week, and had steady clientele and a beautiful property where we photographed mainly family on. And, you know, I enjoyed that, and we had a few staff, and my family was involved in the business and so on. But it was getting to the point where I had enough, and I just didn't have that same enthusiasm and passion for it anymore.
Was it a hard decision, Brian? Power Planter came along, and I want to ask you how it did come along in a minute, but for you to look elsewhere, you've got clearly a successful business, nice property, you know, lots of clients. Was that a hard decision to look elsewhere for the next big thing?
Yes and no. So there was a risk involved. I had a significant mortgage to pay, and I was relying on that business to actually pay that and to pay, you know, the school fees and the lifestyle and so on. And so it took a lot of my time, and I'd always wanted to be able to get into other businesses. I have a passion for business and marketing. And I was quite actually happy not photographing and having other staff doing the photo shoots and me just running the business, because that's what I love. So there was always a hesitation in moving into something else as to whether it would actually cover the bills. And I had a responsibility to do that. So that was the hard part of it. But then when I did start this other business, and it did take off, and I remember discussing it with my wife towards the end of the year at Christmas, and it didn't show any signs of slowing, and I said, I think we should just go for this. And she was like, okay, let's do it.
Wow. That's a nice wife.
Yeah, well, she was at the point as well. We were both getting a bit tired and it was long hours. And because it was a service-based business, you were always giving all the time. So you had to always, put on that customer service smile all the time and be nice to people, even when sometimes they weren't very nice to you.
Yeah.
And were a bit demanding and so on. And that's very draining to do that all the time.
You obviously then what you did was you crossed over. You didn't just close the photography business and start power planter business. There was a 6 months where you did both and tested it out.
Yeah, it was actually only 3 months, and normally I wouldn't recommend someone jumping ship in a space of 3 months. But the thing with e-commerce is it can actually run much faster than the growth of a normal business. I was quite amazed at how fast it actually grew. And it was either we had to run with it and go for it, or we had to, just try and keep it small. That's what motivated it.
Power planter, I understand, came from you buying 20,000 seedlings. Is that right?
Yeah, look, it's a funny story, and it's probably part of my nature, and my wife would agree, is that I can't resist a good bargain. And, sometimes I look at eBay for a bit of retail therapy, and I have an acreage property at Dural in northwest Sydney. It's kind of just on the very edge of suburbia in Sydney, beautiful. And I always wanted to have lots of wildflowers, so fields of flowers across our place. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to plant bulbs. Now, a bulb is a thing that's, I guess it looks a little bit like an onion, but smaller, and it's buried under the ground. And it doesn't do anything for most of the year, and then it sprouts up in, winter and spring, and things like daffodils. People would know what a daffodil is, and freesias and things. So this lady on eBay was selling them in bulk, so lots of 500, and I thought that's what I need, and it was a good price, and so I ordered 500, and before that even arrived, I thought this is such a good deal, I better order some more, and so I ordered another 1,000, and then they arrived, and if I've got any gardening friends out there, bulbs are pretty ugly things when you look at them. So they're just like a shriveled up piece of brown lump that most people would throw out.
Yeah.
But they had potential. That's what I looked at. They had potential. And so this is too good a deal. I want more of these. So I bought another 1,000 and another 1,000 and another 1,000. And before you knew it, I realised I'd bought 20,000 bulbs. And, the next thought that comes through your head, any of the married men in the audience would know, is, what is my wife going to say when I tell her?
Yeah.
And so I had to I had to figure out how we were going to plant all these bulbs, because the normal method is to use a thing called a bulb auger, which is a little bit hard to describe, but it's just a tool that's a little bit like a hole saw you might use in the workshop, but it's just a thing you use on your hand, and you try and turn it around and you dig a hole in the ground. Now, if you lived in UK and the soil was lovely and soft, this thing would work. But in Australia, it's absolutely useless. So after about 5 holes, your hand's wrecked and the tool usually bent out of shape. So
did you not give any thought, Brian, to the fact that even 500 bulbs would require some level of commitment and labour? 20,000? Is it like you were just swept away by the bargain?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not really kind of a jump-in person. I do try and think about it, but I don't necessarily have the full solution.
Okay.
And I think that's part of having that creative spirit in me, is that I'm not afraid to start doing something and kind of plan it as I go, knowing that something will come to me.
Oh, I love that.
And I think, I'm 45, and probably when I was younger, it's probably a bit risky to take that attitude, but because you never know what's going to come out. But over the years, you kind of get to know that, something will work out. There'll be some kind of solution here if I really need to find it. And so, I started looking at tools and hand tools, and I was researching everywhere I could find in Australia to try and find something. I was using drill bits, different like little mattocks and things, and all of them kind of worked, but to do the quantity we were looking at, it still wasn't really practical. And I had some staff, and I just knew they were going to kill me if I said we were going to have to plant a leaf by hand. It just wouldn't happen. But I wanted these bulbs in the ground. I wanted it to happen. So I looked overseas. I thought they must be doing something different over there, because I knew that they did big displays of flowers and things. And I came across a thing called a bowl welder that's different to the one in Australia. It was designed to attach to a drill, a cordless drill. And the product itself is called a power planter. And if you can imagine something that looks like a corkscrew, or if you're familiar with a post hole digger, it's like that, but on a very small scale. So it's only they range from about 20 centimetres long to 60 centimetres long.
Well, it's a large corkscrew or a small post hole digger, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Depending if you're more inclined to drink wine or you're more inclined to do landscaping.
Correct.
But it attaches to a cordless drill, and I bought one from America and got it sent over, and I remember being in the garden by myself at the time, trying it out, and that was on purpose because I didn't want to look like an idiot if it didn't work.
Yeah.
And it just went straight into the ground in maybe 2-3 seconds. It just went.
You must have just. Did you do a little scream?
I was laughing out loud, almost like a little bit of an evil laugh.
Yeah.
Felt like I struck gold. And as it turns out, I probably had. And then I just looked at this and I go, hang on, if you can dig one hole, you can dig 10, you can dig 100. And then I started experimenting and moving sideways between the holes, and then discovered you could dig a whole garden bed in the space of minutes and without breaking a sweat. And so I contacted the American manufacturer, and I said, look, I'd like to distribute this in Australia. And there's a bit of to and fro, and he had to suss out whether it was serious or not. And he took a risk and sent me some samples, and then I started the marketing process, and it just flew. And, it's been going ever since.
How did you... it's one of those no-brainers. I mean, I look at this thing, and I'm not a gardener, but I look at it, and it's a no-brainer. It's like, why wasn't that invented when the drill was invented, right? It's just that it's that much of a genius thing. So you bring it out. How did you initially, because you only brought out how many to test the market?
So initially he sent out some samples.
Right.
He probably sent me maybe $1,000 worth of samples, which just shows you the kind of negotiating process that happened to the point where he was willing to take a risk.
Yes.
And I know for a fact that he's very glad that he did.
No doubt.
And then I ordered maybe $5,000 or $10,000 worth, and got them sent out here, and then set up a website, and then started selling. And the orders we're doing now are much larger. But
can you just give us a sense of? So when you say set up a website, I mean, you're a photographer. I'm guessing you had no e-commerce experience. You have just gone and set up, a very, very simple website with, a couple of pictures of the product and a payment function, and away you went? Is that what you did?
Not really. Look, if I had have done it without any of the knowledge I'd gained, I'll explain that. So you mentioned Dale Beaumont before, and I want to give him a plug because I've been in the Business Blueprint program for the last 4 years, and it's like a university course in marketing business without any fluff. All the knowledge that I'd learnt in there, I then started applying to this. I said, okay, if I'm going to start a new business, I want to do it right from the start. I want to try and eliminate a lot of the mistakes, and if I do make a mistake, I want to adjust and learn from it and keep growing. And so I said, what would be my ideal business? And I said, okay, well, I don't want to be dealing with customers face-to-face all the time. I've had enough of that at the moment. I want to have it online so that I can, if I want to travel or go away or have a holiday, I can access it and still manage it, and not have a bricks-and-mortar store where I'm locked into turning up to work each day. I've always worked from home. The idea of driving into the city for an hour in the morning and an hour home is just a nightmare to me. I couldn't do it. And so I just wrote down a list of all the things of what I wanted in a business and how I should structure that and what I'd learned from the Business Blueprint program and how to market that and so on. And I discussed it with Dale, the idea, and I said, is there anything you can think of that I should do before I kind of launch this? And we were talking about, said, first of all, you need to get the license for the product because you need to be ready in case this does take off, that you are secure with this, that all the work you're going to put into this is not going to be taken away by the American company or by anyone else. You need to have an exclusive license for Australia. And that was something I'd never done before. It was out of my comfort zone for sure to discuss any of that, but I talked with the American supplier, and we got on really well, and he actually got his lawyer to draw it all up, and I was happy with that agreement. So that was really good advice. So, yeah, then I looked into what platform should I use, and again, I looked at the knowledge I've learned from Blueprint and others, and it was clearly Shopify was going to be the easiest platform to start it on.
Plug and play.
That's right. And so then I looked at different themes and then different apps you can add into it and so on. And one of Dale's mantras is progress, not perfection. And I really like that one. It doesn't mean be sloppy and produce something that's average, but it doesn't mean get so focused on having to be absolutely perfect that you never actually launch the thing. And I think that's actually a big problem with a lot of people that are running their business. They spend so much time over-analysing things and never actually take the brave step to actually do something. And so, look,
Can I just ask you, because that resonates deeply with me. In fact, I'm sitting on an idea now where I'm waiting for perfection, and I'm always saying production, not perfection. Interesting. I'm a bit of a plumber with a squeaky tap. What do you say to those listening beyond just get on with it that are waiting for perfection?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what it is that you think you're going to attain perfection, and then you'll try and launch it, but there's actually an improvement that will happen as soon as you launch, because it's always changing. So therefore, you can't actually achieve perfection. It evolves all the time. So the idea is that you put a lot of effort into researching and planning, for sure, absolutely. Then you set yourself a deadline, so I'm going to have it launched by this date, so therefore you have to get everything in order to get it happening, and then you take that first step, a deep breath, and look, things will go wrong. There'll be parts of the order process that won't be quite right, but you get on and you sort it out. And then the next day, another problem will happen. You get on and sort it out. And so every day there's always a challenge still for me. Every day there's something happening. But I know that, okay, we just think calmly, let's work it out, or I get someone who is an expert in that area to help me sort it out.
Can you remember the moment, Brian, in those first 3 months where you're still a photographer, you're testing out Power Planter to see if it's the next big thing for you and your family? Can you remember that moment where you've looked your wife or yourself in the eyes and gone, yep, here we go?
Well, it had different stages. I tell you, the first stage is day one, we launched the website, absolutely no sales. Day two, no sales. Day three, I think we sold one. And that at that point there, I'd gone, oh, it's a winner. It's got potential. It's got potential. Yeah. And then the next day it was like one sale or three sales and one sale and just like this. And gradually it grew. And so it was kind of fun in those early stages because we'd get so excited when we break the previous day's sales average, right, or sales total. And so we'd reach like $100 for the day. And we go, wow, $400, yeah. And of course, we weren't really thinking about, what the end profit was. And that's something that's really important with e-commerce. It's all about that end profit, not just about stroking your ego and getting big sales. And look, it gradually grew. And when it got to $1,000 a day, I multiplied out and go, that's $365,000 a year. We're getting close to the sales of my other business. And so I'm saying...
what about margin?
That was a success point. Well, no, look, I wasn't focused on that at the time.
No. Why would you be?
That was a minor detail.
Minor detail.
But I was looking at it and going, wow, if I can get this up to 500,000, I've just replaced the revenue from my other business. And so it was a real success point. Now, we were making quite a bit of money on it. I didn't really know how much at the time. My accountant later on came to me and said, Brian, we've now got a tax problem. We need to talk. And I'm like, that's good. She says, that's very good.
Can I just get clear on that? You didn't know at selling $500,000 worth of Power Planter what your profit was?
No, we hadn't sold. We hadn't sold 500,000, so I have to clarify that. I was projecting. So I was going, well,
Right.
we were doing, what's math on that? My brain's all thinking mode, not mathematics mode at the moment.
Yeah.
So if we go, 50,000 a month and multiply that out, that's 600,000
Yes.
a year. So I was going, if we're doing 45,000 a month, I'm on track for doing 500,000 in a year. And so we hadn't reached that yet. We were only like 1 month in, but we were going, okay, first month we did 25,000 and then we did 50,000. So 50,000 to me was saying, okay, we're on track for matching this business. All right. And yeah, initially there's a lot of expenses still. So you're learning all about customs and how to import things and delays with shipping and all that. But as long as you have an attitude of, it's okay, let's just try and figure this out. We've got to find a solution. Let's work it out. And sure enough, you do. You don't let yourself get stressed by it. So I ran this business a lot less emotionally than my previous one. There's another key as well. And I think the key to e-commerce is to have a brain that works emotionally and also can be logical or analytical as well. I think you need that combination. And if you're kind of one or the other, you need to have someone else.
I was going to say, that sounds like two people.
Yeah, you need to have a bit of personality at the moment. You need to have two people in your business that can actually help balance that. Because you need to sell emotionally, because people buy with emotion, but you need to look at the numbers purely analytically with no emotion to actually work out what's working and what's not.
So
you can't
true.
base it on feeling.
I want to get into the marketing of Power Planter, but before we do that, can you wrap some numbers around it so we get a sense of size now? Where's Power Planter at? How many have you sold? Annual revenues? You tell me.
Okay, so we started in August 22nd last year. That's the other cool thing about e-commerce is you actually have a date that you start the business because there's a date you launch and turn it on. You know what I mean? With a normal business, I think we started in, about 2000. So August 22nd, I know that date. Like I said, first month we did 25,000, second month 50,000. It grew and grew. We're up to 1.8 million, and we haven't hit our first year yet, so we're a month out from
a month, 1.8 million a month.
No.
Goodness me.
1.8 million since August.
Since August.
22nd. Yeah. In our first year. So we've got a month to go. So we're going to hit very close to 2 million for the first year.
You said that, Brian, with I can't see you, but with a very big smile on your face.
Absolutely.
Does photography seem like a million years away?
It does at the moment. It's a big relief. I'm glad we made the change.
Where is your creative outlet? Because I get the sense you're an emotional, creative individual. I get that, every business has creativity, whether you're talking accounting, law, customs or marketing. But where is your creative outlet now? Gardening.
Well, it's in two places. So it's in the Power Planter business. So I have a great deal of fun actually doing the videos and the marketing side of it. And if the listeners want to head to the website, you can see. If you go to powerplanter.com.au/gardeners, that's our landing page, and you'll see a video there. And
I love it.
And it's a bit of fun. And the other thing I do is a bit of acting. So I'm in a local musical production of the Addams Family. And so
who are you?
I'm follically challenged, and so I got part of
Festa.
Yeah, that's
I love it. Hey, I've got to say, that video that you have on your homepage, I have a new idea for you, a new revenue stream. Now, if it works, 50% will be fine. 50, call it 50. Yeah. I watched that video of you drilling the holes in the soil with the Power Planter, and I cannot tell you how meditative it is.
I'm so glad you said that, because I look at it and go, I feel quite calm watching this.
Oh, my God. Seriously, I reckon, and this is a viral video, I find a block of dirt that someone will give you that you could literally drill, I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands of holes. I would watch it. I'd pay for it.
It's like watching the fire burning, isn't it?
It is.
The open fire. Look, that's an example of, we created the video, but I didn't plan it for that purpose of the opening page. But then I thought, hang on, that would really work as a background video really well.
It's genius.
And sometimes you just got to run with it and do it and let that creativity actually happen. So, yeah, look, that's my creative outlets, is having a bit of fun with those.
Listeners, I am talking to ex-photographer turned power planter, devotee, licensee, Brian Chapman. Let's talk marketing, Brian, because that's what we're here to do. Now, a little birdie tells me, and I now know, that you have an alter ego when you start talking about power planter, because in our pre-interview, I thought you were quite demure. I was a little bit worried about whether I was going to get anything from you. Now you tell me you do acting classes.
Yeah.
You really do, don't you, have this alter ego?
That's right. So that's something I'd learned both from acting but also in the photography business, is you have to adapt your personality to who you're selling to. And when I was doing photography, sometimes we'd have clients that were from, in a lower demographic and a bit roughly spoken, and everything was mate and whatever else. So that's how I tend to speak to them. And then we'd have people that were from, the North Shore, and they were very well spoken. And so I'd adapt and I'd talk to them, and very clearly, and we'd appreciate the art and so on. And then you'd have people that were very quiet or very, extroverted and so on. And so I learned to adapt, and that's how, I sold well in photography. And the same rules apply to whatever products you want to do. And one of the speakers we had at Business Blueprint, I should have written her name down. I'm very sorry to her for now not knowing her name. But she talked about brand personalities. If you look up 12 brand personalities, you'll find her. Mm-hmm. And her talk was fascinating, because it just said all the major brands in the world each have a personality, or they have one main personality and secondary personality. And for example, one of those personalities might be rebel. And so if you looked at, say, Richard Branson or Red Bull, they're all got a rebel personality,
right.
Don't they?
Yep.
Okay. And then if you looked at another brand personality, might be called wholesome. And so things like Disney would be that personality of wholesome.
It's interesting, though, because what you're saying is that you adapt your personality depending on who you're selling to. I would argue that Virgin don't, Disney don't, Coke don't. These brands know what they are, know what they stand for, and no matter what side of the tracks you, the customer, come from, that brand will always be the same. You're kind of challenging that. I don't know what's the right or wrong answer, except that being more than one person can be tiring.
Yeah, true. So like in photography, I had to adapt my personality. But with Power Planter, for example, I have a personality that I created for selling this product, because I knew who my demographic was for this. And so the same thing with Richard Branson or any of the brands, they know what their market is, and they've developed a personality, a brand, because so often branding talks are all about colours and logo design and all that type of things, and that's all beautiful. But I don't know, maybe it's just the way my brain works. As soon as you give a personality to it, it makes it so much easier, because then you go, oh, that's how that person would talk. That's how that person would dress. That's how they would reply to something, So I looked at our brand and I said, okay, I want our brand to be the, I can't remember what the title was, but I think it's everyday man. So in other words, that the bloke that you get along with, it's the everyday guy. I wanted that. And then I also wanted a bit of cheekiness to it as well. Mm-hmm. And so I had to have a bit of an Australian larrikin to it. And so, when you see me in my videos, you'll hear I've got a really strong Australian accent, and I'm quite enthusiastic when I'm talking about it, because I wanted to be like a gardening presenter.
Yeah.
And so that when people watched it, they felt like they'd been watching me for years.
Love it.
In fact, it's the first time we've met, and it's worked. Yeah. And it's particularly connected with our demographic, which is probably 40-plus-year-olds, and a lot of seniors, and they like it.
Well, you say that brand is absolutely more than just the tangible colours and fonts and shapes. It's absolutely about the intangibles about voice and about fun or emotion or whatever personality traits you want to attach to it. Let's talk about the e-commerce side of things. You got Shopify, so incredibly easy to set up an e-commerce store. That was a good move, clearly. Can you maybe share what are the top 3 to 5 things that every e-commerce store should do in your experience?
Yeah, okay. So the big one, I guess, is you need to have a store that's very easy to navigate. That's kind of the basic things. I want to try and get past the basic things, though. So it relates to more your ads. I hope I can just, go on a tangent here, Tim, but your ads, you have to have a video ad as your starting point, which then leads to a landing page, and that landing page is like a sales page, a long copy sales page, which is telling them all about why this product's so good and showing testimonials, a bit like an infomercial, but in written form and a bit of video. And then that has to link well to the actual product, and then you then need to have probably an upsell sequence after they've purchased the product to try and add to that sale, a bit like McDonald's with it. You want fries with that. So that's kind of the sequence that's in there. Now, there's all different apps that help you do that. Is it okay if we talk, you want to talk about the marketing, is it okay if we talk, how it relates to Facebook and things?
I want to cover everything from, setting up your store to then how you're getting... Because having a great store is one thing, getting traffic to that store is another. So by all means, I shall let you lead the way on this.
Okay. So if we talk about the store, so Shopify platform, people don't know, is just a way for you to go on, create an account. You can even do a starter account free. And then you can put some products in and you can set your prices and you can say, I want to accept credit card payments through Stripe or PayPal or whatever else. And then it will put the money into your account. It'll notify you there's an order come through. You then process that order and so on. So to try and do that yourself by hiring a web developer and getting them to build an e-commerce site, big money you're talking about. Say Shopify might be, I don't know, $30 a month. We're on a higher plan now, but it might be $30 or $40 a month to get yourself started. And so if I can speak to all those guys in the audience and girls in the audience who are, maybe in service-based businesses, or you're in a corporate role, or you just, you'd like to start your own business but you haven't, stick to your job, keep doing it, but start this business on the side at night times and on weekends. You don't need to quit your job. So there's absolutely no excuse for not giving it a go, because you've got the tools there to make it easy for you to do that.
Just don't watch the next series of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I basically don't watch any television. I'd much rather watch, I do watch videos and stuff like that, but, I'd much rather continue my education and continue to be learning all the time. So that's one key is with Shopify. Get into that. Don't look around at other platforms. Don't worry about it. That's one of the big things about Business Blueprint is that they will look at all the different softwares and things that are out there, and then they'll come back to you and say, we think this is the best one to use. And I'm like, if they say it's the best one, I'm jumping on that. Because I'm not going to waste time looking around at all these other things. I'd rather let you guys look at it. And that's one of the big key points. And then the marketing. Marketing is the big key in how to make this work. And it's exciting. It's running this is a bit like playing a board game, strategy board game. So I get up each day and I look at the stats for the previous day, and my son and I work. My son works in the business, and he's got a real analytical, brain, and we have to talk about the stats. What's changed? Is there any abnormalities in there? Is there anything that could have caused that? And we write notes all the time, every day, to do this. And then we play a game, and we, I'm not particularly into gambling. It's a little bit like gambling in that you take a risk and you put a punt on some idea, and then you let it run, you test it, you measure it. Did it work? No. Can we tweak it a bit? Yes. Did that work? No. Okay, scrap the idea and move to the next one. And so it's just like you're playing a game the whole time and you're strategizing the whole time. So the key things with marketing is that the first step of marketing, and you've probably had other speakers speak on this who are far more knowledgeable, but the first step is that you've got to introduce yourself and make the customer aware that you actually exist and that there's a product that will solve a need that they may not even be aware of that they have yet. And so that's your awareness stage. And your awareness stage needs to go out to a big audience. Now, it can be targeted. So, for example, mine is a garden product, so my targeted audience is garden. But it's also DIY. Anyone who has a property that doesn't live in an apartment can basically use my product. So I've got a pretty big audience. And you need to advertise to those people, and then you need to see who showed any interest, and then you say, okay, well, that audience that showed interest in some way, I'm now going to send a second lot of ads to, which is called remarketing, and it's going to cover another point that I didn't cover in the first thing, and I'm going to lead them through a sales funnel to the point where they go, I'm going to purchase. Now, some people just get excited and they buy at step one, which is the awareness stage. They go, they see it, love it, I'm buying it. And thankfully, we get heaps of people buying at that stage. Others need to research it and think it through a bit more. And so then they come back at the remarketing stage. And then others need even more time. And so we need to show them more evidence like testimonials and things like that. And then they say, no, this is a good product. And then I'm going to give it a go. And so on. So we lead people through this funnel. Now, when you're marketing, that first step is your most expensive one in marketing. It's like putting a billboard out on the motorway. It's very expensive. A lot of people are going by. Most of them won't buy. Most of them aren't interested. And so you can't afford to spend too much per person who views that. And that's where video, for example, on Facebook is the way to go. It's only a low cost per view, only a few cents per view, and so you can take the risk and show it to thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
This is the great thing about marketing these days, Brian, is that the risk is very low. The downside is very low to anything that you and your son decide to try. It's not as if you're talking about running 30-second ads on the Channel 9 network or buying full pages in the local newspaper. I mean, this is... You are talking, cents, cost per click, and it's amazing times.
Marketing has changed so much. Business has changed so much. The big players in business are suddenly, a bit worried because what they've been doing in the past hasn't worked. And all these small fry are coming up and going and growing businesses very quickly because they're targeting the actual consumer that they specifically want. And that's what we do. So...
can I just on that, because I'm just thinking, what are the threats to Power Planter? I mean, you've got the license, and you talk about big businesses. Are Bunnings kind of knocking on your door, or have you got?
No, they're not, and I'm surprised actually that they haven't. And my kind of aim has been to initially fly below the radar, so that we're selling direct to consumer. So that people aren't aware that it's grown into a sizable business. And then eventually, Bunnings, I think, will approach us because people will keep asking for this product. So I didn't want to sell it directly into Bunnings. It would have been so easy to kind of take that route. But as soon as I do that, it becomes just another product on the shelf.
Yes.
We don't get to actually interact with the customers and answer questions and solve problems right then. So we have our website 1,500 reviews. 1,500 reviews.
I want to talk to you about that because I'm looking at it now, and on your homepage, I mean, once you scroll down from that wonderful meditative video, I mean, it literally is, I'm going to say 20 reviews, testimonials on the homepage, and then another 40 pages. You clearly put attach a lot of importance to testimonials.
Absolutely. Like, I still have people on Facebook and our ads go, oh, what a load of rubbish, as if that would work, all these other different comments. And I just say to them, look, mate, have a read of the reviews. There's 1,500 there. And 90% of those reviews are 5-star. And I can't remember what the other stats are, but there's the next, maybe 6% are 4-star.
Do you have I'm interested in the system of you getting those reviews on. Is there an app within Shopify that allows someone to leave you a review that automatically then posts to your website?
Yeah, of course. I don't do any of that. And as the structuring of this business, I didn't want to be doing that. So, there's an app that you get as a Shopify app called Product Reviews. And then there's another add-on you can get to that automates the process of sending an email out to them about 20 days after they purchase,
asking,
saying, you bought such and such. What do you think about it? And they just got to click a couple of buttons and then leave a review. And thankfully, we get lots and lots.
You have another app that is review-based. Well, no, it's not review-based. It's sales-based. It keeps popping up on the homepage, which says Johnny Blogs in Perth just bought a power planter. Is that real? Did he really?
Yes, he did. Yes. But I'll tell you, there is a little bit of a trick to it, all right? It is actually a real sale, and it's a real person. Business ethics are really important to me, so I would not use something that was fake. I will not use fake reviews. I will not use any of that. So ethics is really important to me with his business. But I'll tell you what it is that's a little bit cheeky, is that Johnny didn't buy it just then. Johnny might have bought it 10 minutes ago or half an hour ago or yesterday. So when we first started the site, when our sales were slow, Johnny's sale may have come from yesterday, but it shows up when someone comes to the website saying, Johnny just bought whatever, and it creates a sense of excitement on the site. And now, of course, we've got lots of sales, so it really is legit. Johnny's buying 30 seconds ago. And so, it's grown. But
they just keep coming through, I've got to tell you.
Apps keep helping you do things like that. And that's where you learn and you go, what are the best apps to be using on the store? And there's thousands of apps you can use. So, I'm sure, there's a whole lot of good ones. There's a whole lot of rubbish there too. So, you've got to actually research into what are the best ones to actually be using.
I need to wrap things up shortly, Brian, but I am interested. I've got a couple of ideas for you, but what is the most effective form of marketing you're using to drive traffic to the website?
Definitely the videos. So, again, creating the brand personality first before you create a video, working out how that person's going to talk, or if you're not good on camera yourself, if you're not good at presenting, hire an actor to do it. It's not a problem. You can go to sites like starnow.com and you can actually put a posting and say, I need someone with this character to do this. And there's lots of, wannabe actors there that will work for a lower fee just to actually have material for their show reel. Now, please do pay them. Don't do it for free, but please do pay them. But it might only cost you a few $100s to actually get someone to come out and do that. And create a video that really talks to your audience and addresses a problem that they have and tells them how your product is going to solve that problem. And then reinforce that with testimonials so that it's not just you saying how good it is, other people are saying it's good as well.
And is that a video that you are putting on Facebook or anywhere you can find?
Yeah, that's a video on Facebook.
Right.
And then it's also on YouTube as well. And then, that email out and so on. And we sink money into promoting that video online as well. And we have a few different versions of the video. We have 7-minute one, 6-minute, 1 minute, and so on. And then we test and measure.
Do you have a full-time SEO person?
No, I don't.
Why?
No, I don't think it's actually a priority.
Interesting.
So we use Google Ads to actually promote ourselves, but we list really well anyway. In my previous business, I never had a problem with SEO. We always were on page 1, usually in position 1 or 2. I've never found SEO particularly complicated. It's just about actually using keywords, having all your images pulled correctly, and having content on there, and then marketing it.
But to that point, I mean, I am guessing there aren't many people going to Google and searching for power planter. So what are they? How are you ranking? What are you ranking for? Maybe the search term "help." I've just bought 20,000 bulbs.
If people type in power planter, they're going to find us, and that's the main thing. And that was another key thing I'll just bring up is with the American manufacturer, he has other distributors that have other business names. And I said to him, no, if I'm going to do it in Australia, I don't want to market this under Brian Chapman products. I want to market this as power planter because nobody knows what it is. We need to get that brand name really well known.
Right.
I said that's my whole focus. And it actually took a bit of negotiating with him because he was reluctant to do that because he didn't know me. He didn't know if I was going to, damage his brand. And I said, look, I'm 100% behind this. We need to get power planter known so that when people are looking for this, they know the name. There's no mixing up with anything else, and they go straight and they find it. And that's why it's worked. And then for other things like SEO, for other words, planting bulbs, for example, if you don't list well on that, if bulb suppliers list, well, then we supplement with Google words to do that.
Okay. Is there a reason, Brian, that you're not creating any additional content? I've clicked on your blog. There's one post there which tells the power planter story. I'm guessing you don't have a podcast. You're not giving away any ebooks. Is that just a matter of time?
I think it's a matter of personality. I'm not a blogger. I've tried it before, and I just dread the idea of blogging. It doesn't suit me. We're going to be producing more video content, and we do video content. The next thing we are doing is using our Facebook Live a lot as we head into the spring to actually produce gardening segments, and then probably visiting other nurseries and other suppliers and working with them and helping them sell their products as well. My overall aim is to find products that are really good products but just poorly marketed, and then take it to market and make it a success. And that's what we've done with Power Planter, and I tell you, Greg, who owns it in America, is very happy.
No doubt. No doubt. He's going, who's this Brian fellow down under? I thought they were just a bunch of, convicts.
He's put on extra staff over there. We're constantly in contact every couple of days, doing Skype calls, and just get on great.
It's a great story, Brian, and I feel like we've come in at the very start of it almost, without, you're a year old on the 22nd of August, so happy birthday for that. But,
almost, yeah.
It's the upside's huge. I think you should have a podcast which would be sponsored by Power Planter in which you talk gardening. I think there's a lack of Australian content within podcasting, and you don't like blogging. You're a great speaker, though. Maybe it's a vodcast where you do video, but all that's ahead of you. I keep forgetting you're only 10 or 11 months old. So this is just a wonderful, wonderful story, and thank you so much for sharing it. And if people want to buy a power planter, go there, powerplanter.com.au. Thanks, Brian.
All right, good to chat with you, Tim.
Well, there you go, team. Power planter aficionado and very happy small business owner, Brian Chapman. Such a great story. And I feel like we are really at the very early stages of it. Now, coming up, I'm going to share my top 3 attention grabbers from that fireside chat with Brian. Then I'll show you how to create a traffic-inducing blog post. And I'm going to honestly answer a listener's probing questions about my podcasting and interviewing techniques. But first, when was the last time you learned something new? Besides in the show, of course. The Small Business Big Marketing Show is made possible thanks to Open Universities Australia. As business owners, we're more likely to work in our business than on it. Who's guilty of that? Come on, hands up, hands up. I certainly am. We get so caught up in the busyness of business, but it doesn't have to be that way. You see, you can study a postgraduate single unit online through Open Universities Australia. You could sharpen your accounting skills, deep dive into economics. You could even improve your marketing if you can't find a decent podcast on the topic. And trust me, I've tried. Seriously though, having interviewed hundreds of successful business owners, one thing many have in common is they never, ever stop learning. So be one of them and sharpen your skills by checking out the single modules on offer at Open Universities Australia over at www.open.edu.au. My top 3 attention grabbers from my fireside chat with Power Planter's Brian Chapman, thanks to Open Universities Australia and 52ways.biz. Attention grabber number 1. I loved how Brian talked about the creative spirit and that not always having the solution up front is not a reason to not move forward with an idea. Brian, along with so many of the successful people I chat with on this show, was all about progress, not perfection. In fact, I reckon his mantra is make a mistake, then adjust and learn. And I hear that a lot from many, many successful business owners. Attention grabber number 2, adapt your personality to who you're selling to. I might have challenged Brian on this one, but it does make sense. Whilst I try to be me no matter what the situation, I certainly amp things up when I'm doing this show or presenting from stage at a conference. So, there's two schools of thought there. You choose which one suits you. I've also included a link in the show notes for this episode to a blog post detailing the 12 brand personalities Brian mentioned. Attention grabber number 3. Create a video that tackles the primary problem your business solves. Then post it to your homepage, your YouTube channel, maybe even include it in your email signature. I love this idea. Brian's video is absolutely fantastic as well. Check it out on his website, the Power Planter website. I've also included a link in the show notes to the website Brian mentioned, where you can hire actors to appear in your marketing videos if you don't want to. But I would encourage you to appear in those videos if you're up for it. That's what grabbed my attention. I really would dearly love to know what grabbed yours. You can either send that via smoke signal, carrier pigeon, or head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/376.
What have you got to lose?
Oh yes, it is time for one simple yet effective marketing idea that you can implement immediately. It's not going to cost you a fortune, that might just generate you more awareness, more inquiry, and ultimately more sales. I call today's idea the exclusive interview blog post. This is a highly effective outreach strategy that involves working with other people in your industry. It involves you reaching out to top industry influencers and including them in a Q&A style post on your own blog. It's a great technique you can use to show your prospects that you know the right people. It's also a chance for you to bring new traffic to your website. So, here's my 3 steps to creating an exclusive interview blog post. Step 1. Make a list of industry experts or partners that you'd love to get inside the head of and interview them for your blog. Look for people who have an active presence and a great following on social media, because when it comes time for sharing your blog post, they may well help out. Step 2. Once you have your list, start collecting email addresses using Clearbit, which is a great tool for finding anyone's email address in the world. You can also check out their social media profiles, their website, or their past company press releases. Step 3, send out your request email. Make it brief, introduce yourself, and ask them if you could interview them for your blog post. Pitch a topic, and if they bite, follow up with your questions or set up a time to talk to them. And here's the pro tip. Given this is a great way to create helpful and engaging content, don't just make it a one-off blogging strategy. Instead, schedule this type of blog post to do once a month. Over time, you'll create quite a resource that you could turn into an ebook or even a published book. You know what I call those? A glorified business card. That's my 3 steps to creating a blog post that your prospects will love and that will drive plenty of website traffic your way. You can head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/376, where you'll find a link to this post, plus some additional resources to bring this idea to life, including the ideal structure for your request email, a great blog post on how to interview experts without looking like an idiot, and an example of an expert interview blog post. You can also grab a copy of my book, The Boomerang Effect. So, what have you got to lose? Righto team, how are we going? Told you, big show today. We have not finished yet. Now, you might remember it's not that long ago, but back in episode 351 of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, I answered all your questions that you sent me via Facebook and email and had asked me at conferences about how I go about creating this show and my views on podcasting, the hardware, the software you need, how I get guests, all that type of stuff. I thought I covered a fair bit of ground, and I did. Had a lot of comments, a lot of sharing of that episode. But I got this wonderful email from Jason Naylor titled Podcasting Thoughts, and he's got some additional questions, which I am going to answer now. Quite a list. How many we got? About 6. And they're really well thought out, considered questions. And I wanted to share my answers with all of you. So, Jason, firstly, thank you, buddy, for this email. He says, Timbo, big fan in capital letters. I see you approaching 400 episodes and can remember turning in sometime before your 100th episode. Is that 6 years I've been following along? Crazy. That's a big commitment from someone like me, he says. It is 6 years. This podcast has been going for 8 years, Jason, so well done for being around in the early days. I eagerly awaited your podcasting episode and consumed every single part of it twice, but have a handful of questions. It covered some of the technical aspects very well, but, it's always a but, I'm curious about your interview style and feel you glossed over some details of your approach. Goodness me, unlike me to gloss over anything. Normally can't shut up. I hope you don't mind me picking your brains, Timbo. Not at all, Jason. Love it, mate. I particularly love the consideration you've put into these questions. First one, preparation. Your interviews feel like they flow organically. However, I know you prepare greatly. How do you know that, Jason? And possibly even interview your guests prior to your show. You're clearly very prepared. Are you following your own devised plan, very intentionally taking the conversation where you want it to go, or are you winging it? Well, okay, here's the thing. I'm planned. I'm not as planned as you think, Jason. I have a structure in my head of the. I know what is the big question I want to get answered from the guest. I have maybe 5 to 7 questions that I know will carry me through, and then I let the guest share what they want to share, knowing that it's going to generate and stimulate other conversations. So I do have a pre-interview with every guest. I just want to find out how they sound, whether they are actively up and about or whether they're quite reserved. I want to tell them a bit about my show. I just want to prep them for the actual interview. They tell me a bit of their story. When they start going too deep in the pre-interview, I say, stop. Keep your powder dry for the interview. Back to Jason's email. Charisma. There's no denying you've got a great charisma. You're charming and quick thinking and funny. Oh, my goodness. Even with your repertoire of dad jokes. Goodness me. Thank you, Jason. Do you play up for the microphone? Yes, I do, Jason. What you hear on the microphone, if you were to meet me over a beer, you'd get, maybe, 60% of what you're getting here. You can't always be up and about. I'd be exhausted if I was like this the whole time. Are you standing in your power pose and performing your best radio personality? Or is this all just natural? Look, I am into the power pose. I kind of get myself ready for when I am going to do an interview or record something. So I don't just walk up to the mic and hit record. I get myself into a bit of a state. So that is sort of natural, but at the same time, I give some thought in the lead up to it as to how I am going to be. Next one, interviewees. Almost every single interviewee seems to have great microphone presence. They're confident, they're great at speaking and telling their stories. Is this an Aussie thing? Aussies always seem to be more confident. Or is it a business thing? Perhaps there's a correlation between business success and outgoingness. Or is this intentional on your part? You wouldn't interview a quiet, shy introvert. That's interesting. I don't know whether I agree with you that all my guests seem so confident. I think the pre-interview does settle them, so they are comfortable and come into the interview with more confidence. I don't think it's an Aussie thing. I think I work hard at making the interview a fun process. I'd tell them up front that I'm not here to uncover their dirty laundry, so they're not expecting some wacko question. I want them to share their success, how they got there, what keeps them up at night, and so they know what they're coming into. I don't share my questions with them, but I think they know what they're coming into. They've generally listened to an episode. They know what to expect, and as a result, we get that good quality and confidence with the guests. Jason goes on, interrupting. You don't hesitate in interrupting an interviewee for more clarification, probing for a diversion, or making a joke. So much conversation interview advice centres around getting out of the way and letting the speaker speak. Yeah, it does. I don't know if I agree with that. I suspect this is naturally your approach to a conversation, but curious if you're actively doing this to keep the conversation fresh, because it does. Okay, so I'm very conscious, Jason, of interrupting my guests. I don't like doing it, but I do it, because I don't like letting little things go by and moving on to the next part of the story. So I like to kind of dig deep. I call it going down the rabbit hole. So if a guest says something, and it's like, wow, like maybe they say something like, oh, yeah, those first 2 months of the business really kept me up at night. But, we're here now and we're having huge success. I have to interrupt and ask them about being kept up at night in those first 2 months, because clearly that was an emotional part of the journey. And it's those emotional words and phrases that I'm looking for in order to go a bit deeper. So, I'm also very conscious. I've had a bit of feedback on iTunes through the listener reviews, a couple of people saying, shut up, Timbo, you interrupt too much and I'm stopping listening. So I am conscious of that. I mean, that's the minority. They're not going to rule what I do, but I manage my interruptions, and I look for opportunities to probe and to make a joke along the way, because it settles me. I think we all like to smile, and if I can get the guests to laugh, then that's a good thing as well. Back to Jason's email. Limit. He starts each question with a topic. This one's limit. You clearly stick to a time limit. Now, I appreciate 90-minute podcasts are a little overwhelming, like Tim Ferriss, and I greatly appreciate your 45-minute podcasts are succinct and to the point, but is there a particular reason you keep within your time limit? Yeah, look, I struggle with this one. How long should a podcast be? As long as it needs to be and not a second more, as I always say. The average commute is like 30 to 40 minutes. So I think if I can fit in that or a little bit over, then that's a good thing. I find with the long form podcast like a Tim Ferriss or a Joe Rogan that are going for 2 hours, I'm never finishing them. And I don't want to fall into that category of people not finishing an episode of mine that they're listening to. Jason goes on to say, even when the interview is going well and there's plenty of great content, I can tell even you don't want to stop. You're absolutely right, Jason. You can read my mind, mate. It's well done. I think there have been interviews where I just shouldn't have stopped early because we sort of got to that 30 or 40 minute mark. I should have kept going, and maybe I'll get better at that. But again, I don't know whether I want to be the guy known for the 90-minute podcast episode. I continue to, I might master that in the next 400 or 500 episodes. Editing. Your episodes flow beautifully. There's no awkward pauses, mangled sentences, moments of confusion. Is this great editing, or does your interview really flow well anyway? Don't do a lot of editing. My editor, Daryl, puts the show together beautifully. He removes some of the ums and the ahs. We don't swap stuff around. We don't pull out anything really at all, but I do make sure there is a nice flow to it. I don't mind the odd mangle sentence or see, whatever I'm trying to say there. Not going to edit that out. But I love the idea that podcasting is very real. It's not radio. We don't have people breathing down our necks saying, please get your words right. We can be ourselves. And I think people buy from people. People buy into us as podcasters for that reason. I hope these questions aren't too probing or difficult, but there's a certain quality your interviews have that many, many others lack. Thanks, Jace. That's really kind, mate. You speak regularly of your love of podcasting and ruminated on a recent show about going all in. I'm on the fence regarding diversification or specialisation, says Jason, but I'd fully support your efforts. There's not another podcast I've listened to as often as your show. Thanks, buddy. Another weekly episode, another show, a whole network. I could handle more Timbo in my ears. Wow. I wonder if there's more Jason Nailers out there. I hope there are. Email me. Let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at Timbo Reid. Keep it up, buddy. Please. We love you. Jason Naylor. Jason, thank you, buddy. I was going to respond by email to those questions directly to you, but they were so well thought out, so considered, that I thought I needed to answer them. So those also in the audience who are interested in doing podcasts could benefit as well. Jason, love your work, mate. Thank you. Righto, that almost wraps up another episode of the Small Business Big Marketing Show. But there is plenty of marketing gold coming your way in the weeks ahead, including a chat with Dan Norris. Serial entrepreneur is Dan, who seems to have the Midas touch given his last 2 business successes. Mind you, it was after 8 years of business failure, but he'll talk about that in the interview. Recently, I caught up with ex-counter-terrorism policeman turned social entrepreneur Peter Baines, who proved any business can do good by doing good. Here he is sharing his biggest learning, having seen the very dark side of human existence.
Resilience, I think. I think it's the case that when people are faced with really unique and challenging situations, people rise up. And we come together as communities and we respond. And I think fundamentally we care about one another. And crisis and disaster brings communities together, and they may be international communities, they may be local communities, but I've seen in where I've worked across the globe in various and numerous crisis situations that inherently people are there to support and help one another.
Yeah, that was quite a chat, with Peter going on to share some great examples of small business owners that are making a big difference in this troubled world and, as a result, getting some really good outcomes. You'll find that full interview plus hundreds more over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, or you can subscribe free on your favourite podcast catcher. I'd love to hear from you. Email me, tim@timreid.com. Hit me up on Twitter @TimboReid, and be sure to join the Small Business Big Marketing Facebook page. Don't forget to sharpen your sword by enrolling in one of the single module online courses offered by Open Universities Australia. You can check them out at open.edu.au. And be sure to grab your free seat at Dale Beaumont's 52 Ways event that's touring Australia right now. August 2017. Simply go to 52ways.biz and grab your seat, because they are limited and most cities are almost full. You can see how full they are over at 52ways.biz. Hey, if you love the Small Business Big Marketing Show, let another business owner know by grabbing their phone, opening up the podcast app, finding the Small Business Big Marketing Show and subscribing. Until next week, I'm Timbo Reid. Thanks for tuning in. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.